Andrew?
I think it was mainly that. Like, I feel like the more I hear you talk, I'm not sure that that's your opinion. So I would like to give you the space to, I don't know, elaborate, I guess.
On
like,
what?
I feel like you're somewhat okay with, like, men having, like, sleeping around.
Never said that.
Okay, all right. Then we don't disagree.
Well, Brian's position is that there's a separation of standard in society. So his claim, which is actually true, we have an awful lot of data and polling to support this, that women view promiscuity in men very differently than how women view promiscuity in the same light, right? So essentially we view it in a different way. Women don't seem to punish men for being promiscuous nearly as much as men tend to punish women for being promiscuous. So it's an is claim rather than an ought claim. Brian's never said that men should be promiscuous.
Gotcha.
Rather, he just says they're not punished for being promiscuous like women are.
Gotcha. Well, that's good. That's good to clarify. I think that maybe I've been confused before.
I'm not in favor of male promiscuity. Just I do think there are some differences between men and women. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
gotcha.
I mean, and you would agree, right? There's tons of women, for instance, who if a man is still a virgin when they're 25 or 30, might actually see that as a red flag, like there's something wrong with him. Whereas men tend to value chastity in women even into their 30s. They seem to value that quite a bit more. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. I definitely, I see what you're saying. But I think it should be that both value chastity. If we could put a should on it. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Should, yes. But is, so as Brian's running the dating podcast, he's looking at what is true. So what we're all talking about for the most part is what is going on. And then we kind of make prescriptions based on that.
Yeah. And
But what?
Yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Like they definitely, that is the way it is, but I think that it should change. Like in the modern dating landscape, it is that way, but it should change. I think that if we could change the way that is viewed, we're going to change a lot about how people go about dating generally right now.
But what do you do about the fact that women see it as a red flag if men do not have sexual partners before them? They think of it as being, what's wrong with you that other women don't desire you? It seems to be a difference in distinction in standard. How exactly would you fix that?
I'm not sure. I don't come from I don't come from that worldview, so it's hard for me to say that. Like my husband waited for me, and I'm so grateful for that. And it was.
Did you wait for him?
I made a mistake in my teenage years, and it wasn't, it had a lot of shame put on me. But moving forward, I wanted to make that better, and I wanted to be honest with him and tell him, even though we both come from the same worldview, I want to be honest with you and tell you that I made this mistake, which actually opened a lot of doors for us to be really honest about the way that our culture has affected each of us individually, and then moving forward in our relationship, we were able to patch that up and really work toward a more God-honoring relationship. But I don't think that much
sure. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that your worldview is probably more akin to my worldview. I understand that, but if we're looking at a descriptor for what is true in modernity, inside of modern society, you'd have to agree that Brian is kind of correct in this assessment that women seem to value what is considered the promiscuous omega chad, or the guy who gets a ton of women, seems to be desired by just as many women, where the opposite is not true. The woman who sleeps with a lot of men tends to be vilified by what are considered these high-quality men, right?
Yeah, and I feel like maybe it's misplaced ideas of like leadership in a relationship. Like I feel like maybe women value leadership, and then obviously in the bedroom as well, they value leadership rather than and I think that's somewhat misplaced because of this. So experience is important to me, whereas it should be, rewire that. It should be leadership is really important to me. If that,
Yeah, but how do you map the ought of women should punish men for the promiscuity when they clearly don't seem to think of it as a value? They seem to think that the more desired a man is, the more attracted they are to said man. That seems to almost be intuitive. It's kind of strange in a way. I don't know exactly how you fix that. What do you think you should do to fix it for the ought?
I think the only way that you can actually fix that worldview is if you change your moral compass. Because if you...
So religion.
Yeah, I really believe that religion is the only way to fix that.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah, so I tend to agree, but
okay.
you do recognize that many women do not follow any sort of religiosity whatsoever. Yeah. But why do you think it is that those women in particular seem to go for those types of men? Why do you think that is?
You're saying that women... You're saying that...
They don't give a shit. They don't care. So if a guy has, I bagged 100 chicks, they don't see that the same way that men see it. When a woman says, I bagged 100 dudes, men go, oh, God, that's disgusting, right? But women don't seem to see it the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that that's an issue. I think that maybe they think... And we're fed these thoughts like, oh, don't even look for someone who's a virgin because you're not gonna find it. So don't look. Or they say like, oh,
Do you think that so many of these women's claiming that you're an incel, what they do is they say, if you have not had sex before X age, you're an incel, and because of the incel rhetoric which has gone around, that is why so many women view chastity in men as being some sort of weakness, because they associate it with basement-dwelling psychopath incel. Don't you think that there's a media push towards that?
Yeah, a media push?
Yeah.
Oh, you hit the nail on the head. I definitely think there's a media push toward it, and I think that's an issue, and it definitely needs to change.
Is it even bad to be an incel? Or is it even bad to be chaste as a man? It seems like that would be a good quality, but it seems that there's some indoctrination that it somehow makes you a bad person, or you're seen in a vilified light, like, oh, you can't pull women, there must be something wrong with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I've heard the term incel like maybe once or twice, and I think I've only heard like my husband explain to me really what it is when someone would call someone that.
Involuntarily celibate.
Oh, okay, there you go.
What happens is this kind of great conflation. So an involuntarily celibate man is a person who's trying to attract female attention but cannot.
Oh, I think that would be...
But there are men who choose to become chaste, who they just choose not to. And there's this great conflation that happens where they are put in the category of being involuntarily celibate rather than voluntarily celibate. I think that's where there's a huge disconnect.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a disconnect. But I also wonder if it has to do with people, these men actually not seeking it. I think that involuntary celibacy might be, I mean, they're genuinely not seeking a relationship. Maybe they don't want to date. They think these like terrible things about women. They don't want to like find a wife because they've maybe had their trust
why
damaged.
would they want to date a chick who's bagged 10, 15 guys? Why would they want to do that?
I mean, there's so many what ifs.
It seems like a bad idea, right?
There's like a lot of what ifs. Like there's not one set answer as to why a guy who is involuntarily celibate would like not get laid. Like there's just so many reasons as to why. Same thing for a woman. Just so many.
Yeah, for somebody who's actually involuntarily celibate. But what I'm saying is that there's a conflation which happens, that men who voluntarily choose chastity are vilified as being incels when they actually are not incels. They are choosing this, but they're put in that category because they won't engage in the promiscuity of society.
Yeah, it's like the negative connotation to what should be is like this man has been chaste and saving himself for marriage. That's the positive connotation, and the negative would be like, oh, he's an incel. But
right.
it shouldn't be that way, because it should be.
Yeah, it shouldn't. But why do you think that there's such a push from feminists to label men as being incels if they choose chastity. A great example, there's a regular on this show, Mason, right? This guy, he looks like a Greek statue, this dude, right? Chiseled out of stone. And he is chaste, he's still a virgin, right? Brilliant engineer, very, very, very sharp guy, but he refuses to compromise on his moral values when it comes to his chastity. I think that is something which should be celebrated, but instead it's vilified. And he is called an incel by multiple women only because he refuses to engage with promiscuity. And yet when I talk to him, he says, men don't really say that to me. It's just women. Women are the ones who say that to me. That's bizarre to me. Why do you think that is?
The movement towards sexual sexual liberation in like the 70s. It's like that's the only thing that I could say would actually be that, because that's when women decided we can have sex and we can do whatever we want.
Well, is it that, or is it that there's women who are promiscuous and they don't like the fact that it's held up as a mirror to them by chaste men who say, I'm not going to engage in that, and they do everything they can to compromise their moral integrity?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think it does go back to like feminism and then the sexual liberation in that era, because that's when it like all began, and it definitely needs to change. I don't know if we're going to be able to have that kind of a religious revolution. I would definitely go for it.
Let me move
Brian
things.
looks like he's moving on.